All right. We're going to go over how to actually paint on your object, or really how to copy a painting. First thing you want to do is grab your palette. And if from creating your color wheel, some of your colors need a refresh, now's a great time to go ahead and do that. So you'll want a full palette, even if you think your painting only has a certain, like maybe only has cool colors. You're still going to need to dull your colors sometimes, so you'll want to have every color on the color wheel. You'll also, it could be a good time if you want to get, if you need black, you can get some black. You'll definitely want white. You'll also want to have out your completed, this is not completed, but your completed color wheel. That's going to be really useful for reference, so you can remember the complementary colors, and you can kind of see what happened to your colors when you added white. You will want to get out paper towels, scrap paper, your brushes, palette knife, all the things that you had for your color wheel you'll then want to get again. All right, so let's go over how would we go about painting. So I'll show you an example first. Depending on what sort of painting you've chosen, there's going to be kind of a different approach to painting. So this image here, you can see uses, it's almost like a color by number. If you look, the colors are divided up into these really clear shapes. And if that's the case, you can actually, when you do your drawing, you can draw the shapes of the colors. And then you will very carefully mix, for instance, this light green, and which will be the same as this light green and this light green. And you just carefully mix it, try to match it to this color. And a way to really be sure that you matched it is you could actually take your scrap paper and place the color right next to it and see if it matches, and then paint it on. This is called direct painting. There's no underpainting. It's just you find the color, you mix it, you match it, you paint it. Okay, so that can be great. If you are doing a painting, for instance, that's something more, I'll say complicated, but like this. This is a Monet painting. You can't really do that same technique. There's a lot of mixing going on even while the artist was painting. There's a temptation of students when you have something like this to want to have an undercolor, like a base color, and then just add some details on top. It's not going to work so well. You can do an undercolor, but the purpose of the undercolor is just going to be so that the white of the paper doesn't show through, or the white of the object doesn't show through. But basically every surface is going to be painted over, even if you do an undercolor, for the most part, every surface. So if I were to do an undercolor on this, probably over here, I might do like a light purple, and I'd probably water it down, just a nice light purple over here, keeping in mind that I'm going to go over it with all these various other purples and greens and grays. And then maybe over here, I might do like a pale, really pale yellow underneath, just so it's not like a bright white. That said, I even see some white peeking through in parts. Okay, so light color underneath if you want, keeping in mind that you're going to paint on top of it. Okay, so let's go on to demonstrating how I would go about, just going to use this as an example. If this were my painting, and I've already sketched it out, so you will also be sketching your painting onto your object and thinking about how is your object, how's the painting going to wrap around the object. Okay, so if this were the painting that I were working on, I've already sketched it out just on paper, but you can do yours directly on the object. I'm going to start with like this area in here. So to me, this area, I see I'm going to need some light yellow. I'm going to need some blue-green. I'm going to basically need that whole family of like from yellow to blue. And I'll need some white. And I notice that it looks like the paint is kind of mixed, almost like they were working with wet paint. So I'm going to try to copy that style as well. Okay, so I'm going to get the colors that I need using the palette knife. So as I mentioned, here, let me do this so you can see. As I mentioned, I'm going to grab some, get the colors that I need. I'll grab some white. Definitely white. Just wiping off my palette knife in between on my paper towel. Get some green. It's going to be like a blue-green, so I'm going to work with the cool blue, which is the same color I used to make the green, so I would use that to make my blue-green. Some yellow. And that should be good. I'm not going to worry about the fish right now. I'm just worrying about this area right here without the fish. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I'm going to take out two of my brushes, my two small brushes. I'm not going to need a big brush in here. Just wiping them off, making sure they're nice and clean. So I have my round brush and my flat brush. I'm going to go ahead and mix up like this light yellow, which kind of looks like it's sort of the base of all of this part here. But I'm going to mix both colors I need. If you know that you're going to want to mix, the colors are going to want to like mix or blend, then you'll want to work with them both at the same time. So I'll go ahead and make my light yellow. That is too dark. Added more white to it. And then I'm also going to make my kind of blue-green color that I see in here. And that has a little white in it, so I won't even bother cleaning my brush off because it also has a little bit of white. So that's some blue. Gonna need some green. And keep going until you get the right color. That's too green, so I'm going to add more blue. That is also, that looks like not a bad color. Remember to test it on your scrap paper because when it's in a big pile, it's actually hard to detect the color. That looks like around the right color. It's just a little bit too dark. So I'll go ahead and lighten that up. If you notice something is way too dark, you can always take some of the paint, put it to the side, and then lighten that portion of it. That way you don't have to add a ton of white to it. But I'm going to get more white anyway. All right, lighten that up a little bit. Okay, so I have the colors that I need. Maybe I'll make a little bit of, it looks like a little bit of green in there. So I might make a little bit of light green. All right, so I think I'm good to go. I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit before attempting to paint that yellow so I don't make a big mess of it. And I'm going to paint the yellow one, and I'm going to work relatively quickly because I know I want it to be wet when I apply the other color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. And also I noticed this artist, Matisse, is kind of expressive style painting. It's not like really clean lines. So I can approach it in a similar way of being a little bit kind of looser with my painting. All right, so I got that. And you can have another brush ready, my other brush ready to go so I can really work it when it's still wet. I'm going to put in some of this blue in here. Once again, being kind of loose with the brush. I'm going to add a little more yellow on top of that to kind of make it feel more integrated. I'm going to add a little bit of the green in here, greener color, a little more yellow to that. So there's a lot going on here. And then I think I went a little too dark, so I'm going to put a little more yellow back over that. I'm trying to capture those little brush strokes that the artist has. Okay, and I'm not going to get the fish right away. I'll kind of let this dry a little bit around them so that the fish are going to be, they're not blended in. They are bright red-orange within that area. All right. I can keep working this a little bit if I want, but I think you probably get the idea. I'm going to go in and get a few more little brush marks. So yeah, acrylic does dry very quickly. So whenever you want it to sort of blend, you have to work quickly. All right, I think that's a pretty decent match there. Um, I want to show you a couple more things. One, I want to show you what you can do with a brush, like with your round brush or your flat brush. So sometimes if people are trying to make like waves in the water or various things, you want to have different effects. You can play with the pressure on the brush, so I can have a nice light line, nice fine line, or I can push it down, and I can get a thick line. So that can be cool to get a nice varied line. Same thing with our flat brush. A little more paint on here. I can do that same sort of thing. You can get some really nice variations with the brush by just playing with the amount of pressure that you put on the brush. Another thing, one last thing folks often want to know is, how do I blend two colors together? So what you're going to do with that is take the two colors that you want to blend together, and you're going to use all three brushes for this. So I'm going to get out three brushes. And I'm going to take two colors that are relatively close to each other. So I'll take these, this blue-green and the green, and I'm going to apply them thickly so that they don't dry really quickly. I need to make more of this. Go right to this yellow-green. And you want colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, otherwise they will not mix nicely. And then I take my third brush, and while those paints are still wet, you're going to mix with the third brush, mix the color from the one section into the other. And you might end up having to add more of either one of the colors, but you have to do this, you have to work it while it's wet to get this sort of gradient. Okay, and I can keep on kind of playing with that. Acrylic is not the most blendable thing, so if you work it wet, you can get it to get a relatively nice gradient. Okay, this is my clean brush. Trying to blend those two together. All right, I think that should give you a pretty good understanding of how to get started on this. All right, thank you very much.